Hi, I'm William Mills, and I'm here at FinovateFall in New York, and I'm happy to be joined by Beth Johnson, who's Chief Experience Officer of Citizens Financial Group. How you doing, Beth?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do at Citizens Financial.
Yes, so at Citizens, I'm the Chief Experience Officer. The first question I usually get is, what is that? And I actually named the role myself a couple of years ago. And it's based on the belief that the way that banks or other fintechs or other companies are going to differentiate themselves in the with customers is through great customer experiences. So how do we think really end to end about those customer experiences and what we're going to be able to deliver over time?
So you're the first Chief Experience Officer.
I am the first Chief Experience Officer at Citizens. That's true.
That's cool. Well, you'll be taking the stage soon to explore the best practice in CX and how to blend human and digital CX in your keynote. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about first principles. So the first thing I'm going to say is that money, and I'd like to talk about money because that's how customers think about it rather than banks or banking. That money is personal and money is emotional. And if we're going to win, and whoever's going to win in this sphere, they're going to tap into that and really think about how do you tap into both the physical and the functional pieces of banking, but the emotion of our customers to win over time.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Can you give us a sneak preview of other information you're going to be talking about that you're going to discuss?
Yeah, sure. We're going to talk a little bit about what's changed in the landscape. I think we all know it, but certainly new trends in digital. The digital team is part of my team at Citizens. So how do we think about building our digital capabilities? How has that grown in terms of banking? We've seen 50+ adoption rate growth over the last several years. And how are customers using digital channels differently as they think about the future? And then what's the role of analytics and those types of skills as you kind of feed that into that ecosystem of digital first, but human touch really important? And then I think the third area, which people often forget about when I talk to fintechs or other companies like here, is the marketing side of that.
Right.
We actually see brand playing a bigger role than ever in how our customers think about us and think about the industry in general. And brand is hard. It's not just the products and services you offer, but it's also how are you as a member of the community? How do you make sure you're thinking about topics around diversity, equity, inclusion, or the environment? And so really touching on all three and then how we develop the tools to use that to create great experiences.
Let me ask you this. This is something I've been thinking about a lot. Banking has always been about the transaction, right? So how do you develop a relationship, whether it's a consumer or a small business or a big business, digitally, a digital relationship as opposed to an in-person relationship?
And I think that's critical. I think that's the future of banking, which is you got to get the basics right. The basic account management tools have to be seamless, they have to be easy, and they have to be digital. But that's really the foundation of the house. And it's building on top of those experiences that do tap into much more of the relationship building. And we're starting to see that work really well. So how do I start to surface insights for you that make sense in the digital channels that you feel good about because I'm helping you in your financial life? Maybe I start some conversations in the digital channel and take them physical. We have something we call Citizens Checkup, like a doctor's checkup. You should have a financial checkup. And that's able to do all digital, or you can start digital and take it physical, or you can do it all physical. And that's about building that relationship around your finances with your customers.
A friend of mine speculated that he thought that the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the adoption of digital in the financial industry by 3 to 5 years. What do you think?
Totally agree. And I think the nuance that's so important in that is your last question, which is it didn't accelerate the adoption 3 to 5 years of doing your everyday account management digitally. That was happening anyway. We've seen for the last several years 50, 60% year-on-year growth in mobile adoption. But what it did change is that willingness to do complex interactions digitally.
It's a little bit harder transactions.
Harder transactions, get more information. Yeah. Use remote advisory, right? Sometimes we think about digital as all self-serve on the mobile app, but it can actually be using Zoom to do a conversation with a person as you kind of progress through that digital journey. So it's really changed the way our customers interact with us from a digital perspective.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, how have you seen customer experience, or CX, within banking and FIs evolve over the last few years, pandemic aside?
Yeah, I think the key is thinking end to end. So banks have been historically very siloed, either product silos or distribution silos, digital versus branch versus operations. And the winners are going to be the people that can break those silos. So how do we think end to end from the customer perspective about what they're trying to accomplish and make sure we're focused that way, horizontally versus just vertically?
That's a hard thing to do, isn't it?
It's incredibly hard. And I think investing in some capabilities to do that are critically important. So we have as part of our UX UI team and digital, our user experience team, we've actually invested in blueprinting capabilities. So how do we help our partners across the bank do a blueprint from discovery all the way through loan fulfillment, for example, through the origination process to make sure that it's seamless across? How does everyone know their role towards a common goal as part of that?
I haven't heard that term being used in the conversations that we've been having here at Finovate. What other pandemic trends have been accelerated or slowed down, so to speak, over the last 18 months? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think we touched on it earlier, but on top of just the digital trends, I think is this trend towards brand and the relevancy of your brand and how customers are making their decision and brand broadly. So we launched a Made Ready brand platform a couple years ago, and it was just happened to be very timely going into COVID that we were going to support you throughout your life cycle. But that became much more than about your financial health. It meant, what are we doing in the community during the times of social unrest? How are we thinking about how we're supporting the environment? We just launched a green deposit product in our commercial bank. It became really important for citizens to play a role holistically in the community and not just in offering those digital tools because of COVID.
Well, what would your top tips be to leaders in the banking and the financial services space to get customer experience right in this new digital age?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think you've got to invest in it. So I think you've got to think about spend the money to get the talent that hasn't always been traditionally in banks, and really think about how do you invest in the talent that can have this horizontal perspective. I often say the biggest transition I think bankers have had to undergo is this was a very people-based business for a very long time, right? Hire people, have great bankers, whether it's a commercial banker or a consumer banker, get more clients, develop those personal relationships. And now we have to be able to do that digitally as well as physically. And we talk about, a mobile-first bank with a human touch. And you got to bring in the right kind of thinking, the right way you compensate your people, you reward people, you celebrate to be able to have that holistic view of the customer experience and journey.
Well, I forget what the percentage is, but isn't a very, very, very large majority of people's web habits are on phones now versus the desktop?
Yes, we see mobile channels being used 8 times desktop. So significant use in our mobile channel. Now it's easy. That could just be I look at my phone, my account pops up and I check my balance. It's so easy, and then I make my purchase because I feel good because I know the money's there. But it's such a simple tool for our customers for that everyday account management in their banking that we see it growing very quickly.
I think a lot of people are having a hard time recognizing that it's mobile first.
Yeah.
And then it's everything else.
We've gotten there a couple of years ago. As I say, our mantra is mobile first with that human touch. And we want our digital channel to be leveraging off our mobile channel. So when we think about our desktop, and then if there's a new channel in the future, we'll add that in.
Alexa or
something like that.
What do you see as the future of finance heading in the next 12 to 18 months?
That's a great question. I tend to think more 3-5 years.
Lay it on us.
But I actually think it's going to be quite different. I think the people that get the seamless interaction models across different channels are going to be the winners. And I think they're going to be winners in large banks, in regional banks. I think Citizens is going to be one of them, as well as some fintechs, because they're going to make that change to pivot to the way customers want to interact versus the way banks want to interact. And this is probably, terrible quote, but I actually had a banker tell me 10 years ago he wanted happy prisoners. No customer experience leader, and by the way, it was not at Citizens, no customer experience leader wants to have that. You want people to want to bank with you, and they have to choose you because it's easy to switch today, and that's going to enable banks like Citizens that are investing in the experience to win.
Well, in closing, what else you think it's important to share for people to know in the Finovate community that we haven't discussed today?
Yeah, I guess the last thing I would say is it's not something we're going to do all ourselves. Nobody's going to create these seamless customer experiences in every channel for every financial need on their own. So I do look at it, and we look at it at Citizens, as a build by partner strategy.
Right.
And so being able to leverage some of the best thinking at our fintech partners to have best of breed solutions that plug in across these journeys is critically important. So I think getting the best talent on the right problems is what's going to win for all of us.
That sounds exciting. Well, Beth, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today. And this is Willam Mills at FinovateFall here in New York.